What's going on, guys? We are on Sensible Prepper Live. Welcome to the escapades of Sensible Prepper. We really appreciate Robbie Wheaton for being here. Gunsmith for over 20 years. Owns WheatonArms.com. Great Glock aftermarket parts. And he does custom gun work. Just a great resource for us. And we really appreciate Robbie for being here every week. So it's the Don and Robbie show. We have a big time. We also have something we're going to announce in just a couple of minutes that Robbie's doing. I think it's going to be pretty cool. And really appreciate Sarah Mack for setting everything up. We may, our area is having they're doing some repair work on the internet. And so hopefully things will hang on. If we start having some problems, make sure you put it down in the comments, and Sarah Mack's watching. But hopefully things will get through. We have had some issues, but we're back. So sorry, we're just a couple of minutes late, but that's part of it. All right. So today we're going to be talking about 30 different ways that you can get into a hobby that's going to improve your prepping. What do we got? Oh, yeah. Well, we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that. We got a couple of things to get to, but that's what we're going to start out with. I do want to mention, though, that Sportsman's Guide is sponsoring today's episode. You get $20 off every $100 or more purchase. Guys, that's 20% off. And you get, if it's over $100, then do two $100 orders.
That's right. That's right.
And then use Sootch, SOOTCH. No 00, no, just SOOTCH. We can't put a link down below in the description because they do sell a lot of things. They sell camping gear. They sell military surplus, which is one of my favorites. Mm-hmm. They sell firearms. They sell everything. So great resource. We really appreciate those guys for what they do. And
make sure you sign up for their buyers club as well. With their buyers club, you get free shipping on whatever you order, with the exception of just a couple of things like ammo, which nobody has in stock anyway. So no one need to worry about that. But sign up for their buyers club. You get free shipping. You start buying big, bulky items, and the shipping will pay for itself. The free shipping will pay for itself almost immediately with your first couple of orders.
Yeah, I mean, we both buy a ton of stuff on there just straight up. And sometimes they'll send me a couple of things to do some reviews, but I use Sportsman's Guide for a lot of things. So especially for the prepper, there's a lot of great things out there. So we really do appreciate those guys.
And one of the best magazines out there.
Yeah. And then, of course, we never have our magazine with us because we have it in the bathroom. We'll pull out our magazine. Yeah, they do a printed magazine. So we really do appreciate them. Guys, one thing, though, and I'm going to let Robbie kind of talk about this for a couple of seconds, what the new venture that you're doing.
Yep. So we have a new company that we've started. It's called GoMedGear.com, GoMedGear.com. And it's a medical supply company. And so we've teamed up with our good buddy Sootch here, and we're going to be releasing the GoMed Gear Sootch IFAK in the next week or so. And that'll be up on the GoMed Gear website. There'll also be links to it from Wheaton Arms, where you can link over there. If you go to WheatonArms.com or GoMed Gear, you can sign up for our newsletter right now and go ahead and get on the early list for that, so you'll know when those are coming up.
Yeah, and we'll get that information out, guys, because one of the things that I do religiously is take a trauma kit with me to the range.
Yep.
And that's one of the things when Robbie started talking about it, and he said, "Hey, why don't we do a Sootch, IFAK?"
Yep.
And so this is going to be a sealed little pack. You can keep it, in your cargo pants. You can keep it right there where you are. It is vital, whether you go with GoMed Gear or not. It is vital to have some kind of trauma kit when you're at the range, because even if you're by yourself, but even with other people, it's definitely one of those things you need to do.
Well, and it's good to have one anywhere you
go.
It
is.
Whether you go hiking, camping. I mean, we're a lot of the stuff we're going to be talking about today with the 30 different hobbies that we're going to be talking about today. That kit could go with you almost every one of those adventures and every one of those hobbies that you do.
Especially when you're doing candle making.
That's right.
It gets wild. It gets really wild. You burn yourself.
I tell you, next thing you know, you done lost an arm.
Yeah. And of course, obviously, when you're doing woodworking, that's another place. But there's, life is just what it is. And, I keep a med kit, a trauma kit in my vehicle. I keep one in my back, my go bag. It's just one of those things. It's not near as sexy as a new gun or, whatever, new fishing rod. But
until you need it.
Until you need it, it's worth its weight in gold.
That's right.
And we also recommend getting training for it. And definitely, that's one of the big things which we are big about. Okay, so we want to get into some things. One thing about Sensible Prepper we love is, even though we talk about being prepared for a bad situation, guys, bad situations just happen. I mean, they just happen.
Yep.
And we've seen it across the country, and we cannot talk about it. But one of the great things that we love about Sensible Prepper in particular is you guys are a lot more positive than it is on the Sootch channel. A lot of times with guns, and the political part of it, it gets a little hairy. So we really enjoy doing the Sensible Prepper. Sarah Mack especially, since she sees all the comments. And if you leave a really nasty comment, I'm not going to see it anyway. So, whatever, but she will. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about some of the things, because we've got a list and we're going to go down. Now, one of the things about a hobby and prepping is prepping can be a hobby. People get into it. They can overwhelm them.
Oh, yes. Yes.
It can take away a lot of, in fact, we're getting ready to do a video on 15 things you can do for free as a prepper. And these things that we're going to do are actually vital, more important than getting the newest gadget and the newest little trick and trinket. And so, you need to have balance. So we thought that this would be a great way to give you guys some balance, at least in thinking, because a lot of you guys have these hobbies anyway. You may not even realize.
That's right. That's exactly right. And there's so many things on this list that, I was sitting here looking over the list yesterday and looking over it today, and I'm like, yep. I'm like, Jesus, I don't need any more hobbies. I need to get a job.
Okay, but this is the thing that I want to kind of do. I want it to be a little bit of a paradigm shift, because a lot of you guys are doing some of these things. But one of the things I want to kind of parallel with this, and we've talked about this in the past, is, guys, if we do have a grid down, or let's just say an economic slide, it doesn't have to be the end of the world, but we're having some issues, and people, your funds are going down. We're already seeing building supplies, food supplies, a lot of stuff, medical supplies going up in price, ammo prices, gun prices. That is inflation, whether they admit it or not. That is inflation. And so some of these things you can actually use to have, part of your business. Now, if you hear a lot of crunching and cracking going on, it's Lance, our German Shepherd's over there chewing on the bone. So just let you know. Okay, so first off, and this is an easy one. This is one that you would definitely, but this is one of the top ones, is camping. Just get out and camp. I mean, a lot of us have enjoyed it over the years, and it's a lot of work. But guys, it can be a lot of fun. I mean, you were with the Boy Scouts. Your boys were.
Well, and camping goes right along with prepping. You've got all of your survival gear. You've got your fire starter gear. You've got your gear to keep you warm. You've got your gear to keep you dry. You've got food, shelter. Everything that you need to be able to survive. And camping gives you a great opportunity to really be able to get out, even if it's only in your backyard.
Yeah, definitely.
But it gives you the opportunity to get out and get to use some of this stuff that a lot of times just sits in totes in your garage, and you're like, well, maybe one day the world will end and I'll get to pull that out and use it. Hey, guess what? Friday night is the day. Pull it out. Put all that gear to use. Get some use out of it. Get your kids out. Get your family out, and really enjoy being outdoors and not just cooped up in the house with a TV and
the computer.
That's right. That's right.
Well,
not on Tuesday though.
Let me tell you,
Tuesday you're here.
Well, they should be up and online by that.
That's right.
One thing about, I'm almost give you a little experience, because we want to go. This is a lot, so we want to go through this list pretty quickly. Yeah. But one of the things that when my wife and I first got married, we went on a camping trip with another couple, and I took my tent. We got it set up. This huge, in fact, we were watching this fire, and the fire laid down. The wind was coming through the tunnel, and then we could hear the rain coming. So we all jump in our tents. I forgot to put the fly over the tent. When we woke up the next morning, we were in water this deep. So let me just say this, guys, getting out and camping and learning your gear and doing is vital, because if something really bad is going on, you can kick it into high gear. You know what you're doing. You get out there. Okay. Now, the next one is, and it relates really closely to it, is bushcraft. Bushcraft. Now, that can be a hobby. And guys, honestly, bushcraft, it can relate to survival in some extent, and yet, you can just make it into a lot of fun, learning how to create fire, learning how to, to distill your water and to filter your water. just getting out in the outdoors. It's really relatable to camping. You're using your knife, you're learning how to do things, you're learning how to feather, you're taking your axe, you're doing all those kind of things. You've got your lights. You want to make sure you have light in all the different things when you're outdoors. Now, for me, I always say this, and this goes with camping. It goes with, fieldcraft. It goes with, which our next one is hiking and backpacking, is that if you are planning just a bug out, that is your survival plan. I've got my stuff together. As soon as something happens, I'm going to leave the house. Now, if you live in an urban situation, that may be one of the things you have to think about. But you're just a glorified refugee. So make sure that you have your location set aside ahead of time, know what you're doing. But bunkering in is the best. But having the skills to survive in the outdoors is vital. So I just want to put that out there. Okay, bushcraft. And there's a lot to that. There's a lot of resources out there about how to get into bushcraft. Okay, also backpacking and hiking.
Yep.
Just getting out, putting that pack on. One of the things about backpacking too is you take your bag, you put it on, you get going, you understand, man, this thing's heavy.
Well, and you also understand the benefit or the drawback of having a really good pack. Something that fits you, has a frame, has some support. Your waistband, your chest band, where you can really pull it in to where it fits you well. You get a backpack that doesn't have some padding and reinforcement in it, and you fill that thing up and you've got 30, 40, 50 pounds on your back and you try and walk all day with it. You're going to know it.
Marine Corps.
You're going to know it quickly.
Yeah. And your boots.
Oh,
your boots, your socks.
Dude, that's one of the most often overlooked items with people that go hiking and backpacking is extra socks.
Right.
The first thing that tend to go, your socks get wet, your shoes get wet, you get blisters on your feet, and you're done.
Right.
Even on a day hike, it's not a bad idea to change your socks out at least a couple of times while you're hiking. Keep your feet dry. You'll have happy feet. You'll be able to hike a lot longer and enjoy yourself a lot more.
Okay. So those kind of are relatable and those are fun. They're fun. You want to get out and do that. I mean, it's something that a lot of people do, whether they're in prepping or not. Okay. Now, another one is gardening. Now, I'll tell you something about gardening. If you've got your seeds put back, you got your seed vault, and you're like, okay, I'm good. If you haven't gotten out in the dirt and actually started gardening, you'll notice right away that it's a lot tougher than Mike Bloomberg says. There's skill involved in gardening because you have to worry about pests, you have to worry about blight, you have to worry about, just all the things that happen, disease. Last year, we had a blight with our cucumbers. We grew a ton of them, but then all of a sudden it started. And so we started treating it and we had to fight it. We had to know how to treat it. And so getting out. But one of the things about gardening to me, we just finished up getting our early garden in. Yep. And I mean, it is full on. I mean, we've got everything set up and it's beautiful. But, we've got to tend to the garden. Got to make sure we water it.
Oh, yeah.
And all those things.
And the same thing. We've got our broccoli's up, our early lettuce is up, our cabbage is up, our cauliflower is up, garlic, onions, a lot of my herbs and spices, all of that's up and doing well. Yeah. Corn, I've got about an inch of corn out of the ground this morning. Yep. So I was up watering everything this morning and saw I had corn coming up. So super excited about that. But yeah, just like you, we got the early stuff already up and doing extremely well. And then we've got some of our mid-season corn already starting to come up as well because the growing time is quite a bit longer with that.
But, guys, even if you live in an apartment, even if you live in a condo and you live in an urban situation, you can grow things in pots and planters, maybe out on a porch, even in a window.
Well, like you and I we're both doing raised beds.
Right.
So instead of tilling the ground, breaking the ground up, like we did that last year and we had a big garden last year where we tilled everything and had our garden. This year we decided to do raised beds. And Don does raised beds as well. And it's a very easy way to keep weeds out. It's much easier with weeding with the raised beds than it is with plowing a garden. It's almost a full-time job when you plow an area versus the raised beds. Now I can go out there and I'm like, got it.
Yeah. And two, you may live in a big neighborhood where you can't have a big garden.
That's right.
But here's the thing about gardening. There is the garden of self-sufficiency, this huge garden where you need a tractor and you do all that. And that's great. And that's the optimal. but sometimes you can't do that. And one of the things about having just a few fresh vegetables is it helps you to have fresh vegetables.
That's right.
You can apply it to your other food, and you need it, because if you're just looking at long-term food storage, it's going to get really boring, and you're not going to get the nutrition you need. So it can be just supplemental. And so, that's one thing. One thing we had that was a big deal. I had big planted gardens, and the deer decimated it. I mean, we had zucchini growing up this tall, and they ate all the way to the ground, the stalk and everything. So, you need to find out these things early. Okay, canning, which goes right in with it. Guys, one of the things that goes fast when we have any kind of disaster are canning lids. Canning lids, they just disappear. In fact, even this past year, we had to search and search and search for canning lids. And we finally found some. Of course, you need to have your jars. You need to have your pressure cookers. You need to have all the things that go with canning. But canning can be very rewarding.
Used to your lids and your seals and everything, you could buy reusable lids and seals.
Right.
They don't make those anymore. Everything that you buy now is like one-time use. You use it, you throw it away, and you buy more. Right. So you can't get the reusable stuff anymore like you used to be able to. And that these companies are able to produce more or sell more because the stuff is not reusable like it used to be.
Right. Yeah. They can make money, but you need to have a surplus, and they're not very expensive. If you can find them, I would highly recommend buying canning lids, even if you're not canning, and put them back, because there will be people that need it, which bartering is part of it too.
That's right.
Okay. Now these are some big ones. Fishing, and I'm going to go ahead and include hunting in with that. Fishing, hunting, trapping. Right. Guys, I mean, this already a big sport. It's a big sport. Last year was the first year I got back into hunting. I took about a 20-year break.
Yep.
And Robbie and I joined the hunting club that he's at, and just beautiful. Get out in the outdoors, enjoy that weather, enjoy getting your gun sighted in. One thing though about hunting, I'll tell you that really came to me big time was, I go to the range, I'm shooting, I'm doing all this shooting. But when I'm up in a deer stand and it's early morning and I'm looking through my scope and I'm searching out for deer, or if I have a pair of binoculars and I'm looking, it really allows you to find your target. It allows you to look at distance. It allows you to look at your scope and say, you know what, if I'm at early morning, am I able to see my reticle? There are different things like that hunting is actually going to help you in your shooting. It's going to give a whole nother.
Absolutely. It's like all of my hunting scopes, I've got illuminated reticles.
Right.
To where, early morning, like you were talking about, you don't want to turn it on real bright. You turn it on bright and that's all you see is just a glow. But you can click it on like one, and it's just enough to highlight that reticle to where you can see it.
Right. In that darkness.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's right.
And two, you have your gear with you, and I usually take a trauma kit with me. I make sure I have that with me. So,
and one of the big things is shooting positions, because it's most of the time when you're hunting, it's going to be an awkward angle that you have to take a shot, or you may have to shoot left-handed or right-handed.
Yeah. Those deer do not go with what your plan
they don't.
is.
They do not.
So, definitely hunting. Okay. And then fishing, obviously. Fishing's a great one. And really, fishing to me is one that you'll be able to reap more reward for your food.
Yep.
Now, one of the things about it, when the Great Depression happened, hunting and fishing, man, people just went out and they hunted things out. And so, but it is something that at least can sustain you, but also there's skills that you're going to bring in with that. All right. Now let's go to the next one. Ham radio. Now, ham radio is something that you've got to develop some skill with. It's not something you can go out. I mean, these Baofungs and these Woshens, they're everywhere, and it's cheap to get into ham. But you've got to have some technical skill, and you can use ham in an emergency situation legally without a license. But if you're going to use ham at all, you need to have a license. And there are places you can take these courses. You can go and learn more about ham, because guys, again, there's a lot of technical skill that goes into that. But having ham radio is vital because communication is vital.
That's right. And I tell you, the only ham that I've ever got into is honey glazed. And
I like some smoked hams too.
A little smoked ham's good every now and then, but the ham radio is one of those things that I have on my to-do list that I really want to pursue more this year and really get into that.
Right. It's important. And you get repeaters. You can, I was with a buddy of mine that has a real setup. I mean, he's got antennas running down the rafters of his house and all this stuff. And we were sitting in our state, Greenville, South Carolina, and we were talking to this guy in Sweden who was on a boat. I mean, it was pretty cool.
Wow.
So, there is a lot of capability. All right. We're going to geocaching. Now, geocaching to me was one of those things where I always thought that's just kind of weird. But, you're able to locate things. A buddy of mine that owns a big silver shop or gold and silver shop in town, he told me years ago, he's from Canada, and he said he buried a bunch of silver coins, and he buried it, and he put it in this one place, and it was on his property. And then, he moved here, but it was on family property, so it's still there. Well, he went back a few years ago. He said he had no idea where that was. He goes, it's somewhere. He goes, I thought I could find it. Geocaching gives you some skill to be able to maybe bury something or hide something and be able to find it later.
Yep.
And so geocaching is a big one. All right. Now we're going to go with a couple more, but if you have some questions.
And right along with geocaching, that goes along with maps, with compasses, learning how to shoot an azimuth, learning how to define coordinates, learning how to read a map.
Right.
What all the little lines mean on there.
Right.
So all of that goes right along with geocaching,
right,
which is a great skill to have if you're out in the woods, you're out in the wilderness, and you need to be able to find your way to a point, or you need to be able to find your way back out.
Right. Yeah, it can be for location. Now, again, we're going to have some, if you have some questions, Sarah Matt's going to give us a sign, but we're going to keep going. But if we get some, you guys want to ask some things, please feel free to do it. Okay. Woodworking. We all get out and have our skills, or a lot of us, some of us don't. But not only, the great thing about woodworking is you can fabricate things. And, in a economic meltdown, in a grid down situation, things need to be repaired. And so having, woodworking skills, maybe you want to make cabinets, or you want to make a shelf, or you want to make a chair.
Or something that you use a little more often, like bowls and plates and cups. All of that can be made out of wood.
That's right. So the woodworking, it is the sky's the limit when it comes to woodworking.
And I'll tell you, there's nothing prettier than a beautifully sculpted piece of wood that's been stained and polyurethane, and you can see all the grain and the figure in the wood. That's like up here for me. That to me is just an art, to be able to see some of the stuff that people make out of wood.
Right. And, they've been doing this for centuries,
Yep.
even before electricity. So one thing that I've been doing lately is picking up different tools and things that I can use. In fact, recently I got one of these. It was a grinder, because I have a bench grinder, that I can do things with. But this one has a hand crank.
Oh, yeah.
And the way the gears are set, man, it'll spin that thing.
Oh, yes.
So you can sit there and use it without power. And so that's one thing that's, there are some tools out there, whether it's, your screwdriver, your Yankee screwdrivers.
That's right.
Like
Yeah.
that.
Your little hand drills with the little cranks on them, or some of the bigger grinders that run off a foot pedal.
Right.
Where you push the pedal, it spins the wheels. You can grind your axes, your knives, or whatever. Those are even today, with power or without power, it's still a useful tool.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. And, you can find a lot of this stuff at flea markets, yard sales, eBay. In fact, that's where I've been on eBay, and I just kind of went crazy buying tools. But, I read a book by John Wesley Rawls, and it was Tools for Survival. And it went through some of the tools that you really need to have on hand. And so some of us, guys, we've got our tools, and I've got a lot of tools. I love tools. But on the other hand, we got to make sure we don't miss some holes that we could use. Okay. Let's see. What have we got? Is that shooting? Shooting. That's a big one. And guys, that's one that a lot of times with preppers, we like to shoot, we like to do. But here's the thing that makes it different. Going out and shooting as a hobby is fine, but make sure that you're using it to improve your skill.
Well, that's the thing. There's shooting, and then there's training to shoot.
Right.
So, and there's, I always try, when I go to the range to shoot, to try and pick out 3 or 4 very specific drills and skills that I want to work on. Be it shooting, if I'm shooting a rifle, maybe I want to work on my offhand shooting. So I'm left-handed, so maybe I want to shoot right-handed that day.
Right.
And that's one of the things that I focus on. Positional shooting, whether it's standing, kneeling, sitting, prone, some kind of, all your different awkward stances and things. Those are things you need to work on when you're at the range. So that way you can improve those skills. So when you move back up and you go hunting, and you get put in an awkward position for an awkward shot, you feel comfortable making it because you've trained that and you're very familiar with what it feels like, and you're able to make that shot confidently.
Right. Yeah. Shooting from weak hand is definitely different. One thing too is, and you'll notice this in a lot of my gun videos, is we do shoot one-handed and sometimes weak-handed, because the thing is, in most shooting situations, your chances of being shot in the arms or the legs are 80% compared to the center of the chest.
Yeah. And you go back and watch a lot of the videos that I'm in with you, and I'll shoot strong hand, and then I'll switch right over and I'll shoot weak hand.
Right. You're amphibious.
So, I am.
He's amphibious.
I breathe here.
Yeah. But we do. We try to make sure that we incorporate that, because it is different. When you pick up a gun one-handed, make sure your hand's out of the way.
That's
we put it here. But when you fire, and also just like you point, you put the gun at just a slight angle. And so it allows but the recoil does differently. And so you need to be training with that. And that's just part of getting into the hobby. But it's not just about setting up a target at 10 yards and trying to make a little small hole. Because in a self-defense situation, it's not going to be like that.
Yep.
And knowing to move, knowing what to get behind different situations like Robbie was talking about. Reloading. Now, of course, right now, and shooting right now, with ammo scarcity and the high prices, it's more difficult to do. But reloading is a big one.
Yeah.
I mean, you're a big reloader.
Yeah, I've been reloading for about 25 years now. And, it's something that I enjoy doing. It's something I do with my little boys. We go to the shop and I've taught them how to reload. They know how to reload rifle. They know how to reload pistol. They know how to reload precision rifle rounds. But it's a skill. It's a skill,
Right.
And it's a learned skill. And there's great online resources. There's a ton of great books. If you're interested in getting into reloading, look at like the Hornady reloading manual, or one of the really good ones is the Lee manual for reloading.
Right. Yeah.
It is a novel. That, it's got your ballistics data and stuff in it as well, but it actually goes through the entire history of reloading, where it came from, where the components came from, how it all works, how it all fits together. And it really gives you a deeper understanding of what reloading is, how it works, where it came from, up to the point where we are today. Right. So it's a really good history lesson to get you started into reloading.
Yeah. And you get your components as you can, and right now there are some components that are available and some that aren't. Mm-hmm. So you can actually kind of go with shotgun a lot of times, or large rifle primers. Those tend to be available if you can find the powder. So, it's one of those things. Plus it's cheaper to reload, because you don't have to buy that case every time. You can reload your case.
People have always said that reloading is cheaper. It's not cheaper. It just allows you to shoot more.
Right. Well, that's true. In fact, when I reloaded, and obviously when I started getting ammo sponsors, the motivation to reload kind of went to the side, even though I did set up my reloading equipment. But that was how I shot competitively for years. I couldn't afford at that time to be able to shoot that often. So I reloaded to be able to do that.
And you can tailor a load specifically for your gun and specifically what you're doing.
Right. That's right. You can get that down. And two, and this is not, I didn't actually have this on the list, but being an armorer, guys, the gun is not magic. It's a mechanical device. Now, Robbie can tell you this more than I, even because of being a gunsmith for so long.
Yep.
But knowing how to replace a spring, knowing how to check and replace your springs in your magazines, knowing how to, the different things that you have, being able to build an AR. That's a big one.
Yep.
Because if you have an AR-15, I highly recommend you building one, because it gives you all the ins and outs. It shows you how it comes together. And if you have any kind of problem, you can replace parts.
That's right. How everything works. If something fails, what kind of failures you're going to get with it. And just how all the parts mesh together.
Right.
And the ability to be able to go through and know that if something happens, you've got spare parts. You have the ability to be able to replace it and repair it on site. So, and I recommend that with any firearm that you have. Learn how to work on it. Learn how to take it apart. Learn what all the parts do, how everything works together, and get some spare parts for whatever firearms you have. That way, if you do have something that breaks, like a spring or a pin, common failure parts, you have the ability to be able to replace it yourself at home.
Okay, we have a question.
Art Royal asked, as far as the med kits, international orders? ?
No, just domestic.
Alex Camden says, hey, Sootch, thoughts on learning sewing for preppers? Clothing, especially underwears and socks, are going to be the first thing out of commission in a pinch.
Yes, and that's on the list, but we'll go ahead and hit it because sewing is vital. And in fact, you need to learn how to sew your pack. You can have a rip in your pack. There's one thing that Exotac offers. It's called the rip spool, and it has a sewing needle. In fact, it's a sail needle with Kevlar thread wrapped around, and then there's like duct tape under it. I mean, it is a great little tool. In fact, you can go to Exotac. And I should have put the link down there, but if you put Sootch 00, they give you 20% off Exotac products.
I tell you, even the military, when I was in boot camp in the Marine Corps, that's one of the things that they teach you in boot camp is sewing.
Right.
You know, it's a requirement. You have to learn how to sew just for basic expedient field repair, putting buttons back on your uniform, keeping everything serviceable.
Right.
You get a rip, you need to be able to close that rip up. And it was, when I was younger, the same thing with Boy Scouts. Boy Scouts, that was one of the big things, was learning how to sew and being able to repair your uniforms and stuff when you were in Scouts as well. I don't know about today because I'm not really involved with it anymore. But that was, when I was growing up, that was a huge, very important deal, was to learn how to sew and to be able to maintain your stuff.
Well, if you get a rip in your shirt and then you catch it on a limb, you're going to rip it off. So yeah, sewing is a big one. So not necessarily even a sewing machine, but having a sewing machine is also a great way to be able to actually help other people in a grid down situation. It can be part of your, it can give you extra income. It can be your only income if things get really crazy. So having that skill is great.
Craig B says, if you're interested in ham radios, now's the time to get your license. Soon the FCC will charge you $35 to take the test.
Okay, good.
I appreciate that.
Thanks for that. Yeah, and their ham radio, especially like the Red Cross, different places like that, they offer ham radio classes. They have clubs, and you can really get involved. So I highly recommend it. That's a great hobby.
Matt David Aviation says, thanks to both and Sarah for the solid content. As always, from all your observations, Ammo Seek and local stores, what's the fair market price for 5.56 and 9mm currently?
Well, it's fluctuated a lot.
A little bit, yeah. From what I've seen with 9mm, $500 to $600 1,000 is kind of the going price that I've been seeing for 9mm. So which works out to be about $30 a box for 50. 5.56 is the one that's really kind of been all over the place. I've seen it anywhere from $600 up to about $1,100, just kind of depending on what it is.
I mean, for
1,000.
Yeah, dollar around.
About $1 around.
Yeah, the ammo right now, and it's funny because I have the guy that does my transfers. He drives down to Charleston, picks up ammo, and brings it back. And he actually sells it cheaper than a lot of other places. And so, you kind of have to look around because sometimes I've seen places where it's $50 for 50 rounds.
For 50 rounds of 9mm.
And I'm talking about 9mm.
Yep.
But 223 right now is going to be a little bit more difficult because of the assault weapon ban scare. So people are really buying that up.
Yep.
But yeah, you can check around, but yeah, it's hard to find. But now with Remington back online.
Yeah, I actually, one of my distributors had, now they were already sold out when I saw it, but they had the new Remington range 115 grain 9mm. There was actually, some of it showed up on one of my distributors this morning, which kind of surprised me. So yeah, great to see Remington back producing ammunition.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
Hillbilly Prepper asks, hi guys, speaking of geocaching, how do you feel about geocaching weapons and ammo?
I think that's a smart move, but you need to make sure you prepare it very well.
Yeah.
One thing that I like is vacuum seal. Vacuum seal, and of course, the big thing is you want to make sure it's not somewhere that there's some liability involved.
That's right. That's the biggest thing.
If you don't want to put it somewhere on somebody else's property and then it come back to you. So, that's one of the big things. But honestly, if you have a place now, let me just say this though, guys, if they're really searching and, they come in with metal detectors and with dogs and all that stuff, but one thing that you can do is put roofing nails in a certain area. It makes it really more difficult to find. Of course, it'll make it more difficult for you to find. But I mean, it's like James Yeager once said. He goes, when they're telling you to bury it, he said, that's when you should be digging them up. But on the other side, this is the thing, guys, and this is something we talked about last night on Patreon Live, is, when you Now, and let me, man, that just blew right by me. Patreon Live was so exciting last night. I guess I just forgot about it, but I don't remember now. That's just old man. Okay. I'll think about it later. It'll hit me.
Train with Square Wheels says initial cost of setup to reloading is a tough sell. Are lead wheel weights still easy to find?
You can still get lead wheel weights. A lot of your shops still save those and will sell them. Even like your indoor ranges and stuff, they sell their lead out of their range. So you can a lot of times buy the lead from your indoor ranges. The big thing, if you're reloading and using lead, is to make sure that you mix tin and antimony. There's a formula for it. It's like 2% one and something or the other. But you've got to mix some tin and some antimony to the lead, or otherwise the lead's going to be too soft and it'll just fill the rifling up in your barrel. So you want a Burnell hardness of about 18 to 22 at a minimum for a handgun, running at about 1,000 to 1,100 foot per second. Anything faster than that, you also need to run a gas check on your bullets.
Okay, we're going to go one more question, and then we're going to continue on our list.
J.I. asked, tips on how to convince the wife we should start prepping.
That's the age-old question. That's the age-old.
Forgiveness before permission, brother.
Let me just say this. Yeah, it's tough. That's a tough sell if someone is, and it's just like my brother-in-law. His wife was like, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. And he just continued to go ahead and do what he could, and prepared. And he's actually now, and she's now on board. But one of the things about it is looking at what's going on. They need a motivation sometimes. And to me, after 2020, a lot more people are wide open to prepping. Right. I know in March, we gained 100,000 new subscribers because people were going, what the heck?
Well, and you're exactly right. I think it's creating awareness to what's going on in your environment around you. Like in the last year, we've had COVID, we've had riots. We've had riots. We've had the grocery stores. The shelves have been empty. We've had the toilet paper scare of 2020, which everybody's still shocked over. I mean, there's underwear that'll never be the same. But yeah, on a serious note, you've got all of these things that have been going on, all the civil unrest within our country. All of those things are reasons why you should be preparing now to make sure that you don't get caught, for lack of a better term, with your pants down later. So those would be the things that I would talk with her about. This is what's been going on. This is what's been going on. This is what's been going on in the last year. Go back and look at these things, honey. We need to be preparing now so we don't get caught later in a bad situation.
Now, one thing that I would recommend, though, is not to overwhelm her. No. Say, look, let's just put some things back, come in like, hey, let's have some food set back. Let's have some, let's figure out some way to get water if we need to. One thing that I'm big about is the Big Berkey. Mm-hmm. We use it every day. I mean, it's just a great way. The water's so good. So, there are things you can do like that to say, hey, this is healthier.
That's right. And just picking up a few extra cans of stuff at the grocery store every week when you go. And that way you have some surplus.
And having to say, okay, let's kind of come at it as not the end of the world, but come at it as, we just want to take care of ourselves. One thing that, is to see what's going on in Venezuela, what's going on in Argentina, what went on in Argentina. That's been a big mess. So, there are some legitimate, no, it's not, I've been thinking about prepping for all my life pretty much.
Yeah.
And, so for me, it's like.
It's more of a lifestyle.
Yeah. But if you're not careful, nothing ever happens. Oh, I'm doom and gloom. Oh, and nothing happens. It only has to happen once in your lifetime. So, just coming at it in a slow, bringing her in. And then before long, hopefully she'll pick it up. But even if she doesn't, you have a responsibility to take care of your family.
Yep. Well, and like we talked about some of the earlier stuff with camping and hiking and backpacking and bushcraft, a lot of the things with prepping, you can incorporate into that. So, you make it fun and exciting and something that she enjoys doing to be able to bring her into it as well.
Okay, we're going to get back to some questions. And so if you have them, make sure you get them ready. But we're going to go ahead and go through the list. Another one is, we're going to go to fitness. Guys, get in shape. Even if it's just going out and walking.
That's right.
One of the things, and I was watching Jordan Peterson, he was talking about, if you haven't ever watched Jordan Peterson, it is phenomenal. But he was talking about mental acuity and retaining your mental fitness. And he said these little games and puzzles and things like that, he goes, there's no evidence that that's really helped people to become more, to retain their memory better. He said the one thing that is proven is exercise, walking, running, possibly, and weightlifting. That will help you. So aside from just your physical fitness. But here's the thing. If you are in a grid down, you got to do work, and you need to be in good physical shape.
Mm-hmm.
And so get yourself in good physical shape. Now, the next part of that is martial arts. I delayed that a little bit. The shock, the horror. Martial arts. Now, for me, I took martial arts for 20 years, different martial arts.
Yeah.
And this is the big thing is, guys, is the gun is not always going to save you. Sometimes it gets taken away. Sometimes you have to grapple. Sometimes you have to wrestle. I mean, I wrestled in high school. So, I mean, it's the thing is, you've got to be physically fit to be able to fight and to defend yourself.
Mm-hmm.
In our society today, we kind of lost that art, honestly. When I was in school, people got in fights every once in a while. Then the next day they're shaking hands.
Mm-hmm.
Now they get in a fight. Next day the kid comes with a gun. So, the thing is, but you need to have that physical ability to be able to defend yourself, woman or man. And martial arts are one of the best ways to do it.
Well, and not only the physical ability, but the mental mindset.
Yes.
Is one of the big things. There's a lot of people that have the physical ability to defend themselves, but they don't have the mental mindset to be able to use those skills that they have.
Right.
Or
Even
those abilities that they have.
Well, I'm not talking about Eastern martial arts altogether, even though that's great. Mixed martial arts is really good. But, even boxing and building the strength in your arms and legs. Okay. Knife sharpening. Knife sharpening. A lot of guys, they get really technical, and there are certain ways that'll really protect your blade, especially if you spend a lot of money on it. But learn the art of knife sharpening. And here's the thing, guys.
And get some good tools for sharpening your knives.
Right.
There's the the old whetstone, like Grandpa used. It's set on the counter. That's got
leather strap.
Yep.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of like the Lansky kits that are out there that are really, really good, especially if you don't necessarily have the skill. A lot of those kits, like the Lansky kits and stuff, they set the angle and everything on the blade for you. And it really does it takes a lot of the guesswork out of what angle you need to put on your blade when you're sharpening it.
Right. And I have the Work Sharp. Yep. That is beautiful.
Yep.
I mean, it's powered.
That's right.
You still want to retain some of that. How can I sharpen something on a whetstone?
That's right.
Not only knives, but also your tools. One thing that Abe Lincoln said, he said, give me an axe and I'll spend more time sharpening it than I will cutting, because that really saves your energy getting a good sharp knife.
Well, perfect example. Go to the store. Next time you're out in one of your big box stores, go in there and pick you up an axe and look at the blade on that axe. It is dull. I mean, like rounded over. There's no sharp edge on it. It is horrible. You're like, what am I going to do with this thing? I mean, it's more like a maul. There's no edge on it whatsoever. You look at that axe and you're like, I'm going to wear myself out trying to chop wood with this thing.
Right.
So you get that axe, you get it home. The first thing you're going to do is you're either going to put it on a stone or you're going to put it on a belt sander, and you're going to put an edge on that axe. But if you don't, like you were saying, you're just going to wear yourself out trying to use it. Now,
archery, which should have gone actually with firearm training, but archery, that's another big one.
Mm-hmm.
You can go with hunting. You can learn your skill. It takes skill.
Yep.
And so, getting an archery, even if it's a longbow, but getting out, and it's a lot of fun. You can take the kids out as well. Okay. This is a different one. Beekeeping.
Yep.
Now that's one that if you don't like to get stung, I don't know if you want to do that, but beekeeping with wax and honey. And a lot of guys, in fact, one of my buddies, he does beekeeping, and man, he loves it. And I love it because I always get honey from it.
Oh, well, I tell you, that's one of those that, honeybees and I have an aversion to one another. And so that's one of those items. I love honey. I love honeycombs, but that's one of those items that I'll be bartering for.
Right. Well, or you can meet a friend that does it. But, and that, not only beekeeping, but keeping, husbandry, having chickens and it can be a hobby. It can be a lot of fun. You can learn about things, goats, cattle, whatever you have. So, that all falls together. All right. Candle making. Candle making is one of those things that is pretty cool. I remember one of my earliest memories as a kid. In fact, I think I was in a kindergarten. We went to a candle making place and it was in Winston-Salem, and it was in the old town.
Mhm.
And these people, they were making they had a whole factory, and they were making candles the old way. It was really cool. But making candles gives you light.
Yep.
You know, you learn how to do it. It's a lot of fun. You could even turn that into a business. Okay, we talked about sewing already, but sewing is definitely a big one, something that's important, not just for a seamstress that's over there hemming your pants, but repairing, doing things, repairing your gear,
That's
those
right.
kind of things, your packs, which goes to the next one, leather working, which takes sewing to another level.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
In fact, I have been buying leather making tools lately. Tools like, you know, with the one that has the hole punch, you know, that has the 5 different pieces. You can go in and you can punch out your holes, grommets, doing leather work. You know, my daughter is all into, and which we didn't even put on the list, horseback riding. Horseback riding was, you know, with saddles and leather, you need to have some skill to work on leather.
You're always having to repair something with your saddle, you know, with stirrups and stuff. You know, holes get worn.
Your reins. I
Yep.
mean, you know,
Maybe you need to add another hole. So just having those skills to be able to repair that or replace it yourself is a vital skill.
right.
Vital
But then
skill.
learning, I mean, and just horseback riding in itself is also a great skill to learn. I mean, that's how we got our mode of transportation up until the past 150 years was horseback riding. So, you know, that's something that definitely could come into play. And of course, that would be kind of related to husbandry a little bit. Blacksmith. Now we're getting into some things that, in fact, when we lived in Brevard, North Carolina, which is the western mountains of North Carolina, there were some guys up there that did blacksmith. That was really cool.
Yep.
One thing that I would highly recommend is going to a Renaissance festival in your area. That is a big one. There's a ton of stuff. You can really be inspired by some of the primitive ways that they were making things. Even a loom. In fact, one of the girls in our prepper group has a loom. She wanted it, a new one, and she got this one for her birthday, and so she can actually do loom and make cloth. And so, you know, that's part of just that whole stream. Pottery's a lot of fun. I love pottery, something I always wanted to do. But we would go to these pottery places. Sometimes you can go and create your own pot and learn how to do it, and then get the kiln and the wheel and everything.
And it's pretty inexpensive. And pottery kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier with woodworking, being able to make plates and bowls and cups and stuff. You can do all of that with pottery.
Right.
And, you know, even here in the upstate, there's a lot of clay in the ground here that you can use that clay right out of the ground to be able to mold and make your stuff with. So you don't have to buy clay. Right.
So, you know, just another one. All right. Do we have some questions? Let's go ahead and we're going to do that, and then we'll finish up with the rest of it.
Andrew Pope asked, would you sell a gun if you aren't shooting it as much, or should you just keep it and sit on it?
It's according to how many guns you have. If you just have 1 or 2, you know, the old adage is 1 is none, 2 is 1, 1 is none. And so, you know, it seems like that whenever a bad situation happens, you can have issues. But yeah, if you have a lot of guns, one thing I would just say right now with the way things are going, you know, we may not be able to get as many guns according to what kind of legislation happens.
But on the flip side of that, firearms values have never been higher than what they are right now. So if you do have a surplus of guns and you're wanting to get rid of a few of them and make a little bit of money, there's never been a better time in probably any of our lifetimes to sell one than there is right now.
Yeah. And then you can transfer that money into something else that you can use toward prepping. Now, one thing about guns, though, you make sure you have your personal defense gun, your handgun, make sure you have a shotgun, a 22, and you need some kind of longer range option. If all you've got is a handgun and a shotgun, you need to have something, because you can be pinned down with somebody that's outside of 100, 200 yards can pin you down, and having some kind of rifle. And that would be obviously a little bit of a tougher situation. But, you know, having some of those things lined up, and of course, having your go-to rifle, which will help you with both, but it won't get you out to the extreme distance. So if you've got that covered and you have your family covered, okay, you know, but I would just think about it as in, if something were to happen, am I going to hate that I sold this firearm? If something's going to happen and I got 4 or 5 others to replace it, then, you know, you're going to make some money on it.
Kevin asked, do you have any recommendations on a bug out / get home bag that's budget friendly and holds up well?
Well, you know, the thing is, and this is an evolution. It's an evolution for me. I have the direct action dust. It's a pack that's really excellent. I've been into Maxpedition for a long time. Mystery Ranch makes a great bag. Vertex. I mean, those are great bags. There's a lot of really high quality bags out there. They can be expensive. But so for more of a budget, I would look at like 511, one of their Rush 12s or Rush 24s.
The Condor makes a really good bag.
Condor makes a premium line. They also make a cheaper line. So be careful to spend a little bit extra for your bag. But just to give you one right off, I check into 511 because they are very reasonable bags and they're good quality. I have one of the Rush 24s. There you go, 511. And, the thing is sometimes you just need a pack and you can grab something that's fairly inexpensive, like you're doing EDC, throw it in the back of your car. But if you are going to depend on that bag to get you from point A to point B and you need a good solid bag, you definitely need to put it up. As far as, and we've done, and you can go back through some of the videos, we've done a lot of stuff on gear, but a lot of times, some of it can be expensive. And, I went to Walmart one time and did the cheapest bug out bag you could possibly do. I think it turned out to be $86 for the bag, all the supplies. I mean, a fire starter, which I used one of the magnesium bars and, did some things like that. And then I went back and did a premium bag from Walmart. And you can look at that video. You can just search in the little hourglass or the magnifying glass. Just search for Walmart in my channel, on the Sensible Prepper channel. And that'll show you some of the cheap, but then the premium was a little nicer. But, you really want good quality because what can go wrong will go wrong when you're out there.
KV Design says, what's you guys' favorite flashlights of all time, if it hasn't already been answered?
Well, I'm going to tell you, and some people would say, well, Sootch, but Olight flashlights, I carry an Olight flashlight with me I pulled it out to put it on the charger. I carry an Olight flashlight with me every day, all the time. And they are beast. They are beast lights. We've run over them with the Hummer. I've thrown them up in the air 30 or 40 times. Sarah Mack has hers out. We beat them on post, do all these things to them. I have yet. Now, early on, Olight had a few lights. They were really getting ready. That could have a little hit or miss with quality control. But that's been 9 years ago. Now, their lights are, to me, and I'm going to tell you guys, I've had some of these expensive lights. I'll just put it that way. These expensive lights that are like made in USA, which I love. I've had them go out on me. I have never had an Olight to go out on me. And it stays charged, and the charging system is fantastic. And you can get 10%, and you can get a 10% discount using Sootch 00.
I tell you, I use mine every time that I'm in my shop. Every time that I'm in my shop, I'm using my flashlight.
Yeah, and just use it.
The lights, I'm telling you, it is hands down the best flashlight I've ever owned, without question.
Yeah, and I do reviews on other flashlights.
Yep.
But the Olight is just the one that, and again, my first review on Olight was 9 years ago. 9 years ago. So, you'll see though that when they have a big sale, that's the time to buy them. And they just had a flash sale, so they won't have one for a little while. It's the best time to buy them. But yeah, I mean, there are some good lights out there. I mean, Surefire, Streamlight, those are great lights. They're expensive. But if you really want some good quality, Phoenix makes a good light. There are some good ones out there, but for me, Olight is my top choice. Wow, we got 5 minutes. Good grief, that is crazy. Okay, let's go ahead. Collecting. Now, collecting may seem something that's kind of funny, but like I've just started collecting tools, old vintage tools. Did it so I could do Instagram and do whatever and use them for different packs and things like that. But also, I'm using them because I can use them. They're good quality. One thing I will say is, guys, is you go to Walmart for sure, but you go to Home Depot or Lowe's and you see these screwdriver sets, you see these tools, they're all made in China. Now, China's doing a much better job than they were originally. So some of their tools are actually pretty decent, but you can get on eBay and you can buy US made tools that are older tools that are good, solid quality for less. In fact, I was in Home Depot and I saw some pliers. And I thought, wow, they were like $30 or something. They were really good channel-like pliers. We got on eBay. They had a whole lot of USA made.
Yep.
Good quality. I mean, they were in good shape. And I bought the whole set for that amount. So and coin collecting, silver, especially if you're into silver,
Mhm.
collecting silver, collecting guns, collecting things that pertain to prepping. And so, guys, a lot of us are collecting anyway. We get online, we're like, oh, looks good, buy it. That's not the kind of collecting I'm talking about.
No,
I'm talking
things
about
that are going to
good
have
quality.
long-term intrinsic value.
Right. Electronic repair. That's one that, maybe you need to repair a radio. Maybe you need to work on your computer even.
Mhm.
Maybe you need to be able to understand and getting into electronics. I remember years ago when I was a kid, they always had these electronic little projects you could do,
Yep.
and it taught you the basics.
Well, you need to learn little things like learning how to solder,
Right.
learning how to chase down ground faults, whether you're doing wiring in your house or you've got a grounded wire on your car and your car won't start. You need to be able to find those things.
Right.
And those are things that in a bad situation, you need to be able to take care of yourself, because there may not be anyone you can take your car to or have come over to your house to fix that for you.
That's right. That's a good point, because cars are so electronic now.
That's right.
Welding is one, and this would be soldering, anything like that. But
TIG, MIG, stick,
yeah.
Heliarc, all of that.
My son's roommate, he's a welder, and I've known him since he's a little guy. And one of the things we're doing right now is I'm getting him set up with a welding machine so that he can weld and actually have his own side business,
Nice.
But also we can do things and he can share with us because he's part of our prepper group. And so having a welder in your group is great,
Yep.
But being a welder is great. And two, you can do things to make that a job, make that part of your employment or help supplement your employment. And then a mechanic or machinist. I don't have mechanic on there.
Yep.
Machinist. Robbie has been a machinist. In fact, being a gunsmith, you have to be a machinist.
You almost have to be. That's right. And machinist for me goes back more to like pottery and woodworking and stuff like that. It's just the ability to be able to make things, to take something that you have in your mind or off of your computer and take a block of metal and make it into something that you want or that you can use.
Like Glock barrels.
Glock barrels.
Like Glock triggers.
Glock triggers.
Wheatonarms.com. Yeah, they do a lot of that.
Or, even if you're doing it more on a hobby side and you want to make like little trinkets, you want to make, you can make metal plates, cups, I love making like little bowls and stuff out of metal, out of aluminum, just doing cool stuff like that. That's completely separate from like work related stuff. Even though I do it for a living, it's also something that I do as a hobby as well.
Right. We can form. You can do form.
That's right.
That's great. Let's see. Plumbing. I don't know if that would be a hobby, but it's there. It's plumbing. And I'm going to leave it at that. You guys, if you own a home or you have to do your own stuff, lock picking, that's a fun one.
Yeah.
Understanding how locks work.
Mm-hmm.
My buddy, Rodney, NC Hill, he's gotten into lock picking.
Yeah.
And he's got me a kit set up and I've been practicing, and it's amazing how you can get in there and rake those locks and open those things up. And, some of them are a little more complicated, but most of your locks you can get into. So if you get yourself in a situation where you got to get through a lock, especially in an urban situation, having lock picking, it's a lot of fun. It's very interesting, but yet it has, it has value to it. Let's see. Okay. Flying, learning to fly. Now that's one that's a little bit highbrow because that's expensive, but learning to fly. I have a really good friend of mine, John, who actually built his airplane himself. He actually built the airplane, and he had some help with his company that he went down and did the build with, but he finished it up in his garage. Yeah. And it's a small plane, but he knows how to fly. And guys, knowing how to fly is just it's not one of those things that's real common, but it's something that would be great if you're into that. If you want to learn, you can use it toward prepping. Well,
it goes right back to camping, hiking, backpacking, bushcraft, the ability to be able to get into and out of a remote area.
Right.
These bush pilots in Alaska that have that skill. I mean, those guys are irreplaceable.
Right.
You have to have pilots like that up there that can fly by the seat of their pants and get into these really difficult areas and get you out of those difficult areas as well.
Right.
So it's a tremendous skill. If you've got the ability to be able to learn how to fly and be able to develop that skill, that's one that you can go anywhere and basically have a job pretty much anywhere you go and get to do something cool too.
Right. Okay, let's see. I think we've got one more and then we're going to be finished. Okay, now this is one. Learning Spanish, especially in the U.S. If you're in Europe, maybe Arabic, but learning Spanish. it's just one of those things that, I worked at a company for a number of years, and we had a lot of Spanish employees. And man, my Spanish, I mean, I got to where, it was funny because I'd sit there with them at lunch and they'd just be talking. And I was like, I have no idea. Even though I took Spanish in high school, I'd pick up little things. After a while, they would talk and I would respond to them in Spanish. It was funny the first time I did it. They were like, they called me Diablo, but they would say, Diablo, he speaks Spanish, Espanol. And so we would get into, and so it's really great because there's a lot of Spanish community here.
There are. And if you travel some, Spanish is one of the languages outside of English that is probably one of the most spoken throughout the world.
That's true.
Between English and Spanish would be number 2.
That's right.
So being able to communicate with people, and even if you learn Spanish, you can still communicate with people in Portuguese and several other languages because Spanish is the root base language.
Even Italian.
That's right.
We had an Italian guy that was working there, and he was from Italy. And he would talk to the girls, because there was a number of girls there. He would talk to them with Italian, Spanish, and they had to sit there and work at it, but they could do it. Okay, so it's 1:00. It's past 1. We actually got through the list. It's amazing.
I can't believe it.
We got through the list. And guys, there are other things. If you want to leave down in the comments some other ideas, please feel free to do so. But find yourself a hobby. Don't necessarily make it as I gotta prep. But focus that energy into certain areas.
That's right. Make it fun. Make it something enjoyable, something that you like to do and that you want to do, not something that you have to do.
Right. And 2, it's not that you just have to do one. I mean, we love to hike and camp and, do that kind of stuff. That's one thing we like to do. I love to shoot. I mean, there's so many different things. And so adding these hobbies a little bit too, and just understanding and learning and then testing it out. And, you may find that you really like certain things like sewing. Maybe
That's right.
You want to become a seamstress. So, it's just these are great ideas to be able to put together to help you to be better prepared. And that's the big thing. So we really appreciate Sarah Mack for getting the questions out there. We definitely appreciate Robbie Wheaton for being here. Check out WheatonArms.com.
Yes,
Great
sir.
source. Check GoMedGear.com for medical supplies.
Yep. We've got coming up pretty soon the Sootch GoMed Gear IFAC. You can sign up for a newsletter on WheatonArms.com or GoMedGear.com for updates on that as soon as that's going to be available in the next few days. You'll be able to jump on there and grab one of those.
And we appreciate Sportsman's Guide for sponsoring today's episode. Guys, you get $20 off every $100 or more purchase using SOOTCH. That's it. Sootch. And you get, and then.
Yes, sign up for their Buyers Club. You get free shipping. So you start ordering big, bulky items, and the free shipping from the Buyers Club will just about pay for itself with your first order.
Well, and even just regular items.
That's right.
Shipping can be so expensive. So just a great way to do it. And the guys at Sportsman's Guide are fantastic. We've got that down.
We do.
That.
We do.
We just really appreciate those guys because they're just awesome. But we're going to sign off. We really appreciate you coming by and hanging out. Thanks for all the great questions. This will be a live this video will be a permanent video on the Sensible Prepper channel if you want to go back and look. Be strong, be of good courage. God bless America. Long live the Republic.